In our today's episode, we talk with Ron Iming. Ron is a Dutch-Irish-Spanish entrepreneur with extensive experience in entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship strategy, innovation, and small-medium enterprises engagement. He helps companies to ensure their future by improving their business models, working directly with the CEO or the owner. He's also an author, speaker, and entrepreneur. The unique wide perspective Ron has worked with universities, membership organizations, corporate clients, government departments, public agencies, and with hundreds of businesses is giving him a unique spectrum of perspectives on running businesses in high complex environments. Currently, Ron writes books about books, and he works with a number of companies on implement a 100-day approach to strategy execution. He also helps business people write their own book to enhance their profile and earning capacity. He works with companies on strategy development and intrapreneurship and runs climate change startup acceleration programs for Trinity College Dublin and Climate KIC. Ron, glad to be here with us today. Welcome.
Likewise, Spiros. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Okay, Ron, we had a short conversation in the previous days according to the delightful things that you have done during your journey. But before we jump to the fruitful conversation that we have for today, please provide us a brief overview of your journey. Where were you before? How did all that started, and how did you came up?
Oh, see, that's a very long. I'm an old man, so that's a very long story. But just, I was trained at university level to become an entrepreneur. Set up my first company when I was 20, selling books at the university in Haarlem as a sort of a parallel export gig. I then set up a company as a consultant, which failed miserably, which just shows you that university doesn't prepare you for entrepreneurship at all. I then set up a collective of entrepreneurs who help long-term unemployed to develop their own business in Haarlem and another few municipalities. And the whole idea was to help long-term unemployed to create their own employment. That was all funded through the European Social Fund. That meant that I had the opportunity to travel abroad to do exchange programs. One of those exchange programs brought me to Ireland, where I learned to drink Guinness, and where I fell absolutely, madly, utterly in love with an Irish young lady. And 6 months after, I moved over to Ireland, and I set up my company there. Did a few interesting things. I helped set up the local employment services in Ireland. And I wrote my first book on business planning, which became a bestseller. That led to another bestseller and another bestseller. And eventually my company got taken over by a publishing house, the largest business publisher in Ireland, which sounded awesome. Yeah. But what I didn't realize, it was like having a very big shark in a tiny little bowl. So tiny bowl, big shark flapping on top of it. And we were in the middle of the transformation between book printing and digital concepts. And we also published a few books that became flops. And then you have a big stock problem. And I realized that if you're not successful with publishing, and the risk is very, very high, it's a mug's game. So I left. I was asked to manage the innovation center for Dublin City and the University, where I worked with high potential startups, intellectual property commercialization, and helping to SMEs to engage with the university on research and then commercialize it further. Absolutely awesome, really bright people, but also very, very, very slow. I don't know if you work with universities, but they have a completely different time frame than other people. So a play garden of opportunity, but not many people interested in exploiting those opportunities. And as an entrepreneur, that becomes incredibly frustrating. So I left, set up a company called BookBoss, where we use books as a platform to solve problems. So rather than reinventing the wheel, every problem that you are encountering, somebody has written a book about it. An American has published a book, an article in Harvard Business Review, wrote a book about it. All the things have been thought about before, so why would you use not the best business minds to help you to solve your problem? So we would put the executive team around the table, get them to read 40 pages of the same book, and use that as a platform to discuss the problem and solve it. A little bit of question storming. Did that for a number of years, got asked by a bank who was in the middle of the crisis in 2008 to set up a platform for entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized companies to help each other by setting up an online community. Did that for 10 years, and then in 2017, I sold my BookBoss company to another company, or they took it over, and I moved to Spain. And now I spend my time writing books, about books mainly. I do some interesting work in the area of entrepreneurship, and I do a lot of coaching in the area of strategy and innovation for particularly startups that are in the area of climate change and for SMEs that need to reinvent themselves. So that's been my journey, and now I am old, gray, and 56.
That was, by definition, VUCA journey. So, Ron, how do you deal with VUCA?
Oh, see, I've been thinking about this. So I've been an entrepreneur all my life, apart from the 4 years that I was working for the university. I think VUCA is an essential part of every entrepreneur. I think VUCA has always existed, and I think VUCA is more a mindset than a phenomenon. And once you are open to the opportunity and aware, I think that's the biggest problem, then VUCA is a fantastic thing, because VUCA creates opportunity.
A bit more on that, because for the majority of the people, the thing is that when things go wrong, or forgive me, shit, then the problems appear and they sink, trying to solve problems or even to stay alive. So how, according to your perspective?
Okay, I'm writing my own book at the moment, and obviously I read way too many books, but there's a book called Future Vision, which said that the faster you go, the further you need to go to look ahead. And I think VUCA should not come as a surprise. I think ignorance is not a defense, and that VUCA is everything to do with situational awareness, and that you are aware of what's coming down the track. I think career and entrepreneurship and leadership are all about predicting the future. Because it's not only what's relevant is not only where you are today, but it's also your place in a future, or a possible future, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years into that future, because you need to be at home in the world that then exists, which means that you need to work on your awareness all the time. And that's the problem. I work with a lot of owner managers that are nearly blissfully unaware. And you know, when we had the conversation before, it's like the boiling frog. You're literally swimming in the water and it's all nice and warm and cuddly. And then suddenly it comes to boiling point and you're dead. And I think unawareness is like being a boiling frog, which means that you need to train yourself to become aware, which is, so that's how you deal with VUCA. See, because I spot trends and watch for trends for companies all the time. And you literally have an ocean of information available to you.
Okay.
And you can't know everything. That is literally, so the first thing you need to do is simplify the environment, because you have to accept that you can't know everything. And the way to simplify your environment is by linking your information dashboard to your strategy, which means you need to develop a strategic filter. Now, we developed this thing called a strategic box, but there's literally 6 statements that you need to develop as the frame through the lens through which you look at the world. Anything that's inside the frame is relevant. Anything that is outside the frame is less relevant. And the statements that you look for is a vision statement, a very visual perspective, a YouTube video of you and your business 10 years in the future, a passion statement, because in the world of robotics and AI, passion is the only thing that you can compete on. So what are you and your company passionate about? A value statement, which is the ethics of your company or your guiding principles, 10 guiding principles through which you operate. And principles in itself is a really interesting topic, because that frames part of your own decision making and those of your staff. And actually, if you do principles really, really well, that could be the guiding light. You don't need to do much on organizational structure. You just make sure you have a number of principles that people can work with. You have a positioning statement, which is how you want to be perceived in the marketplace. You have a reason for being, or a purpose statement or mission statement. And then you have a number of resources available to you. And if you define those 6 statements, you have a filter to which you can look at things. And then the trick, which is why we work with 100-day plans, is not to try to set goals for 10 years in the future, because you have no idea how the ocean might just wave, the ocean might go, the wind might go against you. So you set goals every 100 days and you keep on moving. And the point is the movement rather than the direction. And if you do that, you have your filter. And I think then the other thing is, the question is, if you look at VUCA, if you look at all, particularly the technology trends, as a typical owner-manager of a company, do you think you have the ability to catch up or stay even ahead of the curve? And the reality is, in a lot of cases, you can't. There's not a hope in hell that you will develop the next ChatGPT. There is not a hope in hell that you will develop the next CRISPR. So I think you need to go back to the core of who you are as a human being, and what type of business you are in, and which is really interesting then, because I think social enterprise and normal enterprise is starting to merge, which means that you need to start looking for purpose. You need to start looking for meaning. You start looking for authenticity, because those are the things that nobody else can compete with you. And also means that you need not only be clear on that for your business, but it also means that you need to have some tools to keep your mind at ease, which I think meditation should be a fundamental part of every entrepreneur's life. I think you need to learn to become a stoic. But I think you need to learn to be a observer.
Sure, I 100% agree. But here we come up with a thing that at least me personally have to cope in very, very frequently. When we talk about purpose, and as we are talking business, the purpose is to earn money in order, first of all, to keep your business alive, plus the people that are working with or that are working with you.
I agree with you, but money is not the ultimate aim. It's a means to an end. And seriously, if you want to recruit millennials and talent, if you are only in a business for the money, you will not attract the talent that you need. But if you are here to solve climate change, or if you are here to cure cancer, or if you are here to make people happier, healthier, better, that is a completely different perspective on doing business. And I think in the near future, there is no other way than doing business that way. I actually think that, because I'm very active in the area of climate change, and if you look at concepts like natural capital cost and having to pay for your impact on the environment, I think a lot of the large companies that have raped and pillaged this world will get sued. Shell is going to get sued, BP is going to get sued, Coca-Cola is going to get sued. Every piece of plastic and every pollution that they have left, they will have to clean up at full cost, and maybe even at restorative levels, which will mean that a lot of those companies who are purely driven by money will go bankrupt. And I don't think morally there is no choice, but I think in the new economic models, donut economy, etc., there will be no other way of doing it. And we're not ever going to have a choice, because if we don't, as you know, there's no planet B. There won't be a world to live in. And I think economically, politically, driven by consumers and particularly millennials, that choice will be taken away from CEOs. They will have to become social, and they will have to become purpose-driven.
Okay, that makes sense. So this brings us to.
But just to say, but if you see, I keep on explaining that to our climate startups. If you don't have a viable business model that is sustainable from a financial perspective and actually makes money, and we can have a long discussion on how you would define money.
Yeah.
You won't have it. You won't survive. Because our economic models still drive around money. Now, I think that's going to change, but yes, sustainability and money go hand in hand.
Awesome. Makes sense. So I, again, will return to the previous thing, because the question can be the same. We, at the moment, talked about vision, values, principles, mission statement, etc., etc. So this means that the people that want to involve with business, they need to innovate, to bring something on from a different perspective. So do you believe, or have you realized that the companies that are coming up nowadays are innovating, that they consume innovation, or they produce innovation?
See, most of I've worked with a lot of banks, and if you look at their innovation capability, it is pretty limited, to be quite honest. But and the problem is, particularly with large companies, because I've done a lot of research into entrepreneurship. It's the collective ability of organizations to flex their change muscle. And the problem is that a lot of companies do not flex their change muscle. There is no idea flow, there's no pipeline of ideas, there is no sense of experimentation, there is a wrong attitude towards failure, there is the tendency to try to pick winners, and we all know that that's impossible. That's why a VC venture capitalist invests in 100 companies and only 2 survive. So why would anybody else try to pick the winner? So experimentation becomes part, but it starts with, I think, the collective awareness of an organization of their environment. And that cannot only be the CEO, that needs to be everybody within the company. But we always use the janitor as the example, but it needs to be the customer facing people need to be aware of the changes. Actually, they are the people that are most aware of the changes. It needs to be the technicians, need to be the software developers. That's why I think citizen development is such an interesting concept, because not only does that do they become more aware of what's happening in the outside environment, it also gives them the tools to develop solutions almost instantly.
Okay.
So I think change muscle, citizen development go nearly hand in hand. And if you want to look it up, there is I think it's the Adaptability University. And they have this still called an adaptability coefficient, which is your ability to respond to the changes in your environment. But just to go back, I think that starts with being completely aware of what's going on in the outside world. And the more you are aware, and the more people within your organization are aware, the quicker your clock speed, the quicker your ability to make decisions. And ultimately, the aim should be is that the clock speed of your organization is similar or faster than the clock speed outside of your organization. And that in itself is incredibly difficult.
So how do you spot trends in situations like these?
Well, okay. I think that the principle is rubbish in, rubbish out. And I think I've done it. If you analyze the type of, if you would eat McDonald's every day, I would say that within a few years you would die of some terrible disease because it's super unhealthy. And I think most CEOs and entrepreneurs have an information diet that is similar to McDonald's. So the information that they feed themselves is of an incredibly poor quality. And so you should analyze your current information dashboard and then wonder how good that information dashboard that is and how relevant that is. And then build a dashboard where you start looking for quality information that's relevant to your company. And that immediately brings you in, including forward-looking type of sources of information. So a must is the Singularity University. So a must should be MIT Review. A must should be Harvard Business Review. A must is, interesting engineering. And there's literally a whole list of, now I have a list of 20, and I'd be happy to give it to people. It's somewhere in my blogs. You can find them. There are a number of sources of information that you should just be aware of. If you do that for a month, so you read Singularity University every day, and all the stuff that come up, you go, whoa, that's interesting. If you do that for a month, your whole perspective on the world has fundamentally changed, which means that your ability to make different strategic decisions has changed, which means that you are much more aware, not only of the things that are happening now, which is sort of whether Prince Harry is fighting with the royals is completely irrelevant to your business, but ChatGPT, and actually there's an article today I read that they have actually put in the genes of an alligator into a fish to keep the fish more healthy. Now, is it relevant? For a lot of us, it's not irrelevant. But if you think those things into that extreme, I bet you there will be a point in time where that could become very relevant to your company. So not only do you need to be aware, but then you need to actively engage with them, think them through into their extremes, constantly asking whether it's relevant or not, then nearly take a position on the pendulum of change where you want to be, because everything is action and reaction. The example I always use is because we have so much technology, what do have most people on their floor in their houses? And the answer is wood. We're going back to nature. So we have lots of people that love iPhones, and what you see nearly as a trend is that people are going back to Nokias, the old ones, or have completely dismissed phones. We're now into detoxing from social media as a trend. So there's always a pendulum, and your company can take a position on any part of that pendulum. Wonder whether the trends are hard or soft. And there is the guy is his name is Buras, who has developed a whole thinking around that. So hard trends are demographics. So in a world where everything is getting older, what would be a really big opportunity? I would say health will be a big opportunity, and elderly care will be a big opportunity. And there's no denying demographics. Regulation is a hard trend, and there's a few others that you literally know what's going to happen based on those trends. AI is a trend. No denying 3D printing is a hard trend. There's a few things that you know are for sure going to happen. And if you want to add on to it, I don't know, are you familiar with TRIZ?
No.
T-R-I-Z.
No.
TRIZ is a methodology that was developed by a Russian researcher who studied thousands of patents. And there are 40 or 50 fundamental development lines that new ideas follow. They get smaller, they get bigger. So a lot of things are just fully predictable. And then there are soft trends where you would go, okay, weak signal might or might not happen, and you could ignore them a little bit more. So if you look at blockchain, I would say blockchain and transparency is a hard trend, inevitable that is going to happen. Is crypto a hard trend? Maybe. Now, is something going to change in the way we use money? Definitely. But whether crypto or Bitcoin is going to be the way forwards? Yeah. So is that a hard or a soft trend? So you need constantly need to ask the questions. You need to be aware of your own filter bubble, which we also, you need to create some serendipity. You need to move a little bit to the fringes. So who are the really out there gurus? Da Silva is an example. Diamandis is an example of a guru. There's a few people that you can literally name. I think Nassim Taleb is a really interesting person to follow. So you look a bit at the fringes. You do some things that are outside of your normal routine. You have a number of companies to follow. So whatever you say about Amazon, they are pretty out there with their thinking, not only in the way they adopt technology, but also the way they apply management techniques and leadership styles. Google, Microsoft, they're the obvious ones. What are the cool startups? What are the words that we're using? ChatGPT wasn't a word 3 months ago. So what are the words that suddenly start popping up everywhere in articles? Because that's an indication trends. What are the VCs investing in? So you build a whole smorgasbord of sources of information. It's too much, so but at least stay aware, apply the filter. Never forget exponential. No, chessboard, 1 on the first, 2 on the second. If you go follow the whole chessboard, how much is on the last square of the chessboard? And if you take rice, it's 10 times the production of rice. And everybody thinks that as human beings, we are linear. And we find exponential really difficult to understand. But you see exponential trends nearly everywhere, which means that nearly anything that you can imagine, science fiction is becoming science fact. So you really need to read science fiction as well. I recommend everybody to play Xbox.
Okay.
Because from a engagement perspective on the future, it's like playing science fiction in front of you. You get a completely different perspective of the world. And ultimately, this is all about creating a different type of perspective. Where you are at least aware of the things that are happening.
Makes sense. But as all these things are definitely interesting and workable. But on the other hand, we have to admit that by the time that I will decide to start doing this procedure, and I'm referring to the rubbish in, rubbish out, in between, there is a decision-making procedure that, according to that, people are trying to avoid or to eliminate the human error. But as we have already seen since 2008 until today, especially after the pandemic, the human error is something that it is part of life of the life. So when a new company arises, a new company comes up, then the first has to take all this knowledge. On the other hand, has to keep track on all that stuff that you refer to. And in between, they have to take decisions on a dynamical way.
Yeah.
So how does this decision-making process and the evidence-based decision-making affects the beauty of the things that you just described?
Okay, one way of doing it is classic scenario planning.
Mm-hmm.
So see, the way I'm describing it sounds like an enormous amount of work with like piles and piles of information. But all this stuff is also a little bit of discipline. I go way overboard in this stuff, but you need to just work with 2, 4, 5 different. If everyone in your organization picks one interesting fact every month,
Mm-hmm.
and you pick out of those interesting facts, you pick the 5 most interesting facts, and you then spend collectively an hour on scenario planning, where you just formulate the type of responses that we could take towards this type. If this happens, our company should do this or this or this or this or this or this. So it becomes might not never happen, but it starts changing the way your mindset works, the way the company works,
Right.
and it allows you to respond. You can't do this all the time because your business has to run. And then the other one, I think, see, it's very interesting because I don't think, I know we're all striving for optimization, but I think in some ways optimization takes serendipity and innovation out of a organization. And I think that is the kiss of death. I think happy mistakes or brilliant mistakes are the weak signals. It's the outliers and the unusual events that are the signals for something interesting and innovative. It's like this. It's like the spider in the web that literally hears on the left-hand side like little ting-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, where you go, that's interesting. And it's actually corporate corporate intuition that you're talking about. You know, if you have a well-developed intuition, you know when your heart sings, you know that something is happening, and you go, that's what you want to develop within a company, corporate intuition, as an active medium for change.
Awesome, awesome. What do you think the main trends are for businesses? I know that you are
Okay.
a bit.
Okay. First of all, anybody that claims that they can predict the future, you need to immediately ignore them. So, based on my perspective, okay. If you take, what I know most definitely is a hard trend, but it's also something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I think climate change is the biggest business opportunity of this century. I think that our economic models will become circular, because that's the only way we will be able to maintain any sense of economic growth. I think we will move into restorative economics, because the only way we will actually define growth in the future is not by taking resources out of the earth, but actually restore them. So restorative will become a growth model. So our gross national product will be defined in something entirely different. I think, and that's sort of nearly a meta trend. I think technology abstraction is incredibly interesting. Which brings me back to citizen development. So now a person does not need to know anything about software development because they have developed low code and no code, which is literally playing Lego with software, and you build something and you have done it within an hour, 2 hours. I think that's happening with software now.
Mm-hmm.
With ChatGPT, you now can see it's happening with AI. Mm-hmm. It will happen with CRISPR. It will happen with genetic modification. It will happen with robotics. It will happen on a lot of, which means that technology will become available to the ordinary people, and that in itself will create a huge wave of innovation. I hope, and there is a book by, what's his name? He wrote a book called Bank 3.0, and it's called Techno-Socialism. And it's a pretty optimistic perspective on the world, which he hopes that old folks like me and older folks like Joe Biden, Trump, and most of our political leaders will leave and leave it over to the millennials to take over, who are perfectly comfortable with new technology, who have a completely different outlook on life, climate, purpose, etc., and that they will take over and make this world a much better place. I think AI is an obvious trend. I think water is going to be a big trend. What you see is suddenly I see a lot of things around voice, like voice recognition, voice, actually assessing health through your voice. Mm-hmm. Suddenly ears are becoming a medium. Your skin is becoming a medium. So there's a lot of things happening around the whole world of wearables. Synthetic biology is something that is super interesting. And in all those things, I think it's not a question of if, but when. And I think it's going to take longer than we expect, but quicker than we know. Mm-hmm. 3D and 4D. I mean, if I was a transport company or if I was a manufacturing company, I would start to wonder about how I'm going to manufacture in the future. Okay. Because it will all be distributed. Mm-hmm. And then on a positive note, what happens if energy becomes abundant? Because ultimately, if we have solar as our source of energy and we have fusion as a solar energy, and if you believe in exponential, where this inevitably will happen, suddenly things that we think are scarce at the moment will become free. Okay. Now, and then when things become free, a lot of the economic models that we're currently working on become completely useless. And then we're in the world of Star Trek, and then we're in the world of basic incomes. So do I know? No, but do I know that climate is a hard trend? Do I know that AI is a hard trend? 3D printing is a hard trend. Distributed anything are going to be trends. And I think, it's back to my point, that's all lovely. And a friend of mine, when I talked to him about this, he calls this bullshit bingo. What do I have to do with irrelevant? Mm-hmm. They are interesting thought experiments. If they fit within your strategic filter, they are relevant. Mm-hmm. If they're not, leave it. I think nanopaint is the best example. So here you are a traditional painter, and you paint walls. Brush, paint, and you paint. But now there's nanopaint. And nanopaint is a box, and exists, that you put on the wall. It analyzes the outer skin of the wall and goes, okay, the nanobots get released, they eat the outer skin, and now you have a nanobots all over the wall. And then you tell the box to go yellow, and the wall goes yellow. You call it backpack. Little nanobots have a backpack, and they go this yellow placard, and you know the Mexican wave in stadiums. So we all go yellow, and then you say, nah, yellow, no, red, and they take out their red placards, and we have a red wall, any type of color, could make it into a large TV. Doesn't matter. Exponential, it will go anywhere. The question now, as a traditional painter, is you have now two questions on the pendulum of change. Do people want nano paint on their wall? Some people will go absolutely not, because if those nanopaint bots get hacked, they become killer bots. And one day I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, and suddenly I feel my leg being eaten away by nanobots that are gone haywire. So absolutely not. I want additional paint. Other people want the best of the best, and they want nanopaint. So do you stay a traditional painter, or do you become a nano engineer as a painter? And that's exactly the two pendulums, or anything in between. And that is exactly the question that you constantly need to ask on any type of topic. And that's, I think, what's exciting about strategy development and awareness, because once you do it, the world becomes a super, super interesting place. I find it most of the time incredibly cheerful, because you literally, like brain interface. Seriously. So they have now, there's a brain implant that has been studied for 17 years that works. So they will plant something in your brain where you can move things with your thought, which is telepathy, okay? Now, if you think exponential and extreme, where do you think that is going to go? If they can mix fish with alligators, why would you not augment yourself as a human being and get a few gills? So when climate change actually hits and the water rises, just build some gills and we just become dolphins.
Here you are.
Etc. And once you think that, you go, whoa!
All right.
But to go back, obviously that's too far out, but there are things. See, I think the point is, if you do that, particularly over a long sustained period of year, you find lots of really interesting opportunities that as a company you can choose to exploit. But if you don't do it, you have been left with no choice. And that's the point. So all your strategic options will be taken away from you ultimately. The more you become anticipatory, if that's a word, the more options you have available to you, the more time you are constantly buying for yourself to keep on surviving as a company.
Excellent. Where someone can find you? Basically, what is the ideal reason for someone to contact you?
If this resonates with you, if you are worried about your information dashboard, if you are worried about your ability to anticipate, and this is the advertisement and the selling, we developed a really simple 3-step strategic development program, which literally is developing your information dashboard, developing your strategic filter, and get your companies to do some scenario planning.
Okay.
Once you build the capability, we walk away because you can do it yourself. If you need help with your, so I developed this thing called Mind Candy, which you'll find on LinkedIn every day. I do the same for companies, and what it just does, it keeps you aware as an organization. So if you want to keep aware, if you want to reinvent yourself, and if you want to have some really interesting strategic conversations, you can give me a call.
Okay, and before the call, what are the books that someone can read of those you?
Oh yeah, so I have sent you this book, which is based on a study. We did some study for the European Commission on best practice and next practice for entrepreneurship in small and medium-sized companies. And that is a book about books on entrepreneurship. Basically, it's about how to develop the change muscle. People that listen to this podcast can send me an email and I will send it for free, or you have a copy of it, so feel free to send it to them. And anybody that wants to talk to me about entrepreneurship, that's a subject, I think there's an interesting sweet spot between entrepreneurship and climate change. So anybody's interested in exploring that as a topic of conversation, I'm all ears.
Okay. Ron, it was very insightful conversation. There were
Thank you.
loads of information, and the perspective that you came up with is really impressive. I was thrilled to hear you describing all those interesting things that you are aware of and that are coming in the future. It was great pleasure and honor to have you here with us today. I hope
Likewise,
you
Spiros. I enjoyed it. I hope I didn't yap away too much, because I have a tendency to get carried away as well.
That is never an issue in a podcast.
Good. Okay, excellent.
So, ladies and gentlemen, for more information about Ron, his books, and the free copy of his book that he kindly offered to us and definitely to you, information down to the description of this episode. Thank you, and looking forward to see you in the next one. Ron, have a
Thank
great
you.
week.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.